Hello, my dear. Let's continue the life process, and this is the respiration. Respiration involves gaseous changes, intake of oxygen from atmosphere and release of carbon dioxide, that is breathing. Second is breakdown of simple food in order to release energy inside the cell, that is called cellular respiration. So respiration involves two: breathing and cellular respiration. Respiration is bodily process of inhalation and exhalation. It is the process of taking the oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. The process involves in consumption of oxygen and liberation of carbon dioxide in water. Oxygen inhaled is used to burn, oxidize, break down the food, glucose. This reaction produces energy required for all activities. Water and carbon dioxide are the products of this reaction. This process occurs inside the mitochondria and is called cellular respiration, exactly opposite of the process of photosynthesis. It can be represented by this C6H12O6. Glucose taking oxygen breaks down into carbon dioxide, water and energy. The food material taken in during the process of nutrition is used in cells to provide energy in various processes. Diverse organisms do this in different ways. First, some use oxygen to break down glucose completely into carbon dioxide and water. Some use other pathways that do not involve oxygen. In all cases, first step is the breakdown of glucose, 6 carbon molecule into a 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate. This process takes place in cytoplasm. Further, the pyruvate may be converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide. This process takes place in the yeast during fermentation. Since this process takes place in the absence of air, it is called anaerobic respiration. Breakdown of pyruvate using oxygen takes place in mitochondria. This process breaks up 3 carbon pyruvate molecule to give 3 molecules of carbon dioxide. The other product is water. Since the process takes place in the presence of air, it is called aerobic respiration. The release of energy in this aerobic process is a lot greater than the anaerobic process. Sometimes when there is lack of oxygen in our muscles, another pathway of breakdown of pyruvate is taken. Here the pyruvate is converted into lactic acid, which is also 3 carbon molecule. This buildup of lactic acid in our muscles during sudden activity causes cramps. Now it is shown in your book also, NCERT. Glucose 6 carbon molecule in the cytoplasm. It is broken down into pyruvate and 3 carbon molecules, compound pyruvate plus energy. That energy is utilized by cytoplasm in doing many other functions. If oxygen is absent, as in the yeast, ethanol, carbon dioxide plus energy, carbon dioxide and energy is produced. Ethanol is 2 carbon molecule. If oxygen is completely lack, as in our muscles, the lactic acid plus energy and 3 carbon molecule is lactic acid is produced in our muscles. During heavy work or running or doing excessive exercise, then our blood cannot give oxygen to muscles as it is required. So in that case, the lack of oxygen in our muscles happens and the lactic acid and energy is produced. Presence of oxygen as in the mitochondria. In mitochondria, carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. Aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, let us see the difference. It occurs in oxygen, in the presence of oxygen, aerobic, anaerobic, in absence of oxygen. It involves in exchange of gases between an organism and outside environment. Anaerobic respiration, exchanges of gases is absent. It occurs in cytoplasm and mitochondria, aerobic. Anaerobic occurs only in cytoplasm. Aerobic, it always releases carbon dioxide and water. Anaerobic end products may vary. Aerobic, it yields 38 ATP and anaerobic, it yields 2 ATP. Anaerobic mostly happens in cytoplasm in the absence of air. The energy released during cellular respiration is immediately used to synthesize a molecule called ATP, which is used to fuel the activities of the cell. In this process, ATP is broken down, giving rise a fixed amount of energy which can drive the endothermic reactions taking place in the cells. ATP is the energy currency for most cellular process. The energy released during the process of respiration is used to make ATP molecule from ADP, an inorganic phosphate. ADP plus P, which is in circle, inorganic phosphate, taking energy, changing into ADP plus phosphate, ATP. Now P is the phosphate molecule. Endothermic process in the cell then use this ATP to drive the reactions. When terminal phosphate linkage in ATP is broken using water, the energy equivalent to 30.5 kilojoule per mole is released. Think how a battery can provide energy for many kinds of uses. It can be used to obtain mechanical energy, light energy, electrical energy, and so on. Similarly, ATP can be used in the cells for contraction of muscles, protein synthesis, conduction of nervous impulses, and many other activities. So this is the similarity shown in the battery and our body. Since the amount of dissolved oxygen is fairly low compared to amount of oxygen in air, the rate of breathing in aquatic organism is much faster than that seen in the terrestrial organism. Fishes take in water through their mouth and force it past the gills, where the dissolved oxygen is taken by the blood. So if you see the fish, its mouth is open and side में जो gills होते हैं that also contract and relax. Flapping is there continuously. It is due to the taking of dissolved oxygen from the water. Its concentration is low, so it has to break. It has to flap more its gills. In human being, air is taken into the body through nostrils. Air passing through the nostrils is filtered by fine hairs that line the passage. The passage is also lined with the mucus, which helps in this process. From here, the air passes through the throat and into the lungs. Rings of cartilage are present in the throat. This ensures that the air passage does not collapse. Within the lungs, the passage divides into smaller and smaller tubes which finally terminate in balloon-like structures. which are called alveoli. During the breathing cycle, when air is taken in and let out, the lungs always contain a residual volume of air so that there is a sufficient time for oxygen to be absorbed and for the carbon dioxide to be released. So one question may be asked from this underlined dark, what is residual air? So you have to explain it. In human being, the respiratory pigment is hemoglobin. One diagram is shown here. Alveolar surface were spread out, it would cover about 80 meter square. How much do you think the surface area of body is? Consider how efficient exchange of gas becomes because of the large surface available for the exchange to take place. In the alveoli, the exchange of gases takes place and it increases the surface area. Think on that side, if diffusion were to move oxygen in our body, डिफ्यूजन के द्वारा हमारी बॉडी में ऑक्सीजन जाती, इट इज़ एस्टिमेटेड दैट इट वुड टेक 3 years फॉर ए मॉलिक्यूल ऑफ ऑक्सीजन टू गेट टू आवर टोज फ्रॉम आवर लंग्स. लंग से पैर के टो तक जाने में 3 साल लगते. सो दिस इज़ एफिशिएंट प्रोसेस. ह्यूमन रेस्पिरेटरी में पहले नेसल्स में जाता है हवा, फिर नेसल पैसेज में, फिर नेसल कैविटी में, फिर फेरेंक्स में, लैरिंक्स साउंड बॉक्स है, फिर ट्रैकिया में, ब्रोंकाई, ब्रोंक्यूल्स, एल्वियोली एंड देन फ्रॉम द एल्वियोली ब्लड कैपिलरीज एब्जॉर्ब दिस ऑक्सीजन. इनहेलेशन में क्या होता है? द थोरेसिक कैविटी, चेस्ट कैविटी एक्सपेंड्स. एक्सेलेशन में ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होती है. इनहेलेशन में रिब्स लिफ्ट होते हैं और एक्सेलेशन में रिब्स डाउन हो जाते हैं. डायफ्राम बिकम्स फ्लैट इन शेप. इनहेलेशन में फ्लैटन हो जाता है डायफ्राम और इसमें बिकम्स डोम शेप्ड एक्सेलेशन में. वॉल्यूम ऑफ लंग्स इंक्रीजेज एंड एयर एंटर्स द लंग्स इनहेलेशन में, और एक्सेलेशन में वॉल्यूम ऑफ लंग्स डिक्रीजेज एंड एयर एग्जिट फ्रॉम द लंग्स. ये 2 डायग्राम दिखा रखी है इनहेलेशन और एक्सेलेशन में. आप उसको डिफरेंसेस को देखिए और इस डायग्राम की डिफरेंसेस को भी देखना. यू विल अंडरस्टैंड वेरी क्लियरली दिस डिफरेंस. एक्सचेंज ऑफ गैसेस बिटवीन एल्वियोली, ब्लड एंड टिश्यू. एयर रिच इन ऑक्सीजन ब्लड में जाती है, बाइंड्स अप विद हेमोग्लोबिन इन आरबीसी. Oxygen is released in alveoli through blood vessels and tissues. Carbon dioxide released in blood, dissolved in blood, blood vessels released in alveoli sac and sent out through the nostrils. Terrestrial organism में use atmospheric oxygen for respiration and aquatic organism use dissolved oxygen for रेस्पिरेशन. प्लांट्स में कैसे होता है रेस्पिरेशन? स्टोमेटा इन लीव्स, लेंटिकल्स इन स्टेम्स, जनरल सरफेस ऑफ रूट्स. सम इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट्स आया. डू यू नो दैट फर्मेंटेशन predigests food and improves the availability of nutrients present in them. Fermentation adds nutrients such as vitamin B. Do you know that each lung contains 300 to 350 million units called alveoli, making a total of 700 millions in both lungs. Now next process is transportation. Transportation in plants is a life process where substances synthesized or absorbed in one part of the body and carried to other part of the body. Water absorbed by roots is to be transported to the rest of the plant body. Food produced in the leaves is to transported to its place of storage. Therefore, there is a requirement of transport system in plants. Plants में ये transportation system moves the energy stored in leaves to different parts. It also helps in moving raw material absorbed from roots to various parts of the plant. However, these are entire different pathways. These two pathways are explained. The transportation plants consist of two different xylem conducts water and mineral obtained from soil by root hairs to the rest of the plant. Second is the phloem transports food material from leaves to different parts of the plant. Transport of water. Components of xylem tissue of root system and leaves are interconnected to form a continuous system of water conducting channels. रूट हेयर की रूट कैपिलरीज बनती हैं और वो उसको जाइलम के थ्रू लीव्स तक पानी को पहुंचाती हैं. एसेंट ऑफ सैप होता है जब लीव से पानी निकल जाता है तो वहाँ डेफिशिएंसी क्रिएट होती है और इस तरह से देयर इज ए स्टडी मूवमेंट ऑफ वाटर इनटू द रूट जाइलम creating a column of water which is steadily pushed upward. This upward movement of water and minerals is called ascent of sap. Due to continuous inflow of water, a pressure is developed inside the root cells. This root pressure helps in pushing the plant cell sap upward through the xylem vessels. However, this pressure by itself cannot move the water over greater heights. In order to fulfill this requirement, the plant utilizes some other stronger force such as transportation pull or suction pressure. Transportation of food from leaves to other parts of the plant occur in vascular tissues, जिसका नाम है phloem. This process of transportation of food is known as translocation. इसमें भी ATP का यूज़ होता है और ये हर पार्ट तक इसे पहुंचा सकते हैं प्लांट के. This pressure moves from material in the phloem to tissue which have less pressure. This is helpful in moving material according to the requirement of plant. अब ह्यूमन बॉडी में कैसा होता है ट्रांसपोर्टेशन? हाउ डज एटमॉस्फेरिक ऑक्सीजन रीच सेल्स? ये कभी सोचा आपने? वेस्ट मटेरियल्स दैट आर प्रोड्यूस्ड आर थ्रोन आउट ऑफ द बॉडी एंड देयर इज ए सिस्टम दैट ट्रांसपोर्ट न्यूट्रिएंट्स एंड कलेक्ट्स वेस्ट मटेरियल इन द बॉडी. तो इसके लिए आपको ये देखना पड़ेगा सर्कुलेटरी सिस्टम होता है. ह्यूमन बीइंग्स लाइक अदर मल्टी सेलुलर ऑर्गेनिज्म नीड रेगुलर सप्लाई ऑफ फूड ऑक्सीजन. दिस फंक्शन इज परफॉर्म बाय सर्कुलेटरी सिस्टम. इसमें एक हार्ट होता है, आर्टरीज एंड वेन्स होती हैं, ब्लड एंड लिम्स होता है. हार्ट जो है पंपिंग ऑर्गन की तरह काम करता है. पल्मोनरी आर्टरी डीऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड, इसको आप समझिए लंग्स में लाती हैं पल्मोनरी आर्टरी. और पल्मोनरी वेन इसको प्योर करके, पल्मोनरी वेन है ऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड और डीऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड है पल्मोनरी आर्टरी हार्ट से ले जाती है. हार्ट के दो पार्ट हैं मेन और उन दो पार्ट में भी फर्दर डिवीज़न है. राइट एट्रियम एंड लेफ्ट एट्रियम, राइट वेंट्रिकल एंड लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल. तो राइट वेंट्रिकल से पल्मोनरी आर्टरीज जो डीऑक्सीनेटेड ब्लड है उसको लंग्स में पहुंचाती है और लंग से पल्मोनरी वेन्स ऑक्सीनेटेड ब्लड को लेफ्ट आर्टरियम में लाती है. लेफ्ट एट्रियम से ये लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल में लाया जाता है. वहाँ से पूरी बॉडी में एरोटा के थ्रू सप्लाई किया जाता है. जब बॉडी ऑर्गन में पहुँच जाता है ब्लड, वहाँ से कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड इसमें मिक्स होती है जिसको डीऑक्सीनेटेड ब्लड कहते हैं, और ये कलेक्ट करके लाया जाता है राइट आर्ट्रियम में। तो ये बहुत अच्छा, समझदार के लिए बहुत अच्छा है, लाल और नीले रंग से समझा रखा है। Blood consists of fluid medium called plasma in which cells are suspended. Plasma transport food, carbon dioxide and nitrogenous waste in dissolved form. Oxygen is carried by the blood corpuscles. Many other substances like salt are also transported by blood. We thus need a pumping organ to push blood around the body, a network of tubes to reach all tissue and system in place to ensure that this network can be repaired if damaged. तो हमारा पंप है हार्ट। डायग्राम टू शो ब्लड सर्कुलेशन, ये सिंपल डायग्राम है, इसमें आप हार्ट का डायग्राम देखिए। और डबल सर्कुलेशन एक वर्ड है जो पूछा जाता है एग्जाम में। ब्लड ट्रेवल्स ट्वाइस थ्रू द हार्ट इन वन कंप्लीट साइकिल, देन दिस इज कॉल्ड डबल सर्कुलेशन। ऊपर भी जो आपको एक्सप्लेन किया गया था उसमें आप देख रहे हैं ब्लड राइट वेंट्रिकल से लंग्स के थ्रू हार्ट में गया, लंग्स से थ्रू ये लेफ्ट आर्टरियम में आया, और फिर ये 2 बार यहाँ से घूम के जा रहा है, इसलिए इसको डबल सर्कुलेशन कहते हैं। डायरेक्शन ऑफ ब्लड फ्लो थ्रू द हार्ट, पल्मोनरी सर्कुलेशन और दूसरा सिस्टेमिक सर्कुलेशन। ब्लड मूव्स फ्रॉम हार्ट टू लंग्स एंड बैक टू हार्ट। ब्लड मूव्स फ्रॉम हार्ट टू लंग्स एंड बैक टू हार्ट। वही सेम ब्लड दोबारा आ रहा है हार्ट में, तो इसको हम कहते हैं डबल सर्कुलेशन। ब्लड मूव्स फ्रॉम हार्ट टू रेस्ट ऑफ द बॉडी एंड बैक टू हार्ट, तो इसमें सिस्टेमिक हुआ, पहले पल्मोनरी हुआ, ये सिस्टेमिक हुआ। ये एनसीईआरटी में आपकी डायग्राम दिखा रखी है, तो आप इसे समझ सकते हैं। वेना कावा ने कलेक्ट किया पूरा ब्लड, फिर यहाँ से ये वाल्व के थ्रू राइट वेंट्रिकल में आया, राइट वेंट्रिकल से ये 2 पार्ट में हमारा हार्ट में जाता है पल्मोनरी आर्टरीज के द्वारा, और फिर पल्मोनरी वेन्स के द्वारा कलेक्ट किया जाता है लेफ्ट आर्टरियम में, और फिर लेफ्ट एट्रियम से लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल के द्वारा ये पूरी बॉडी में ट्रांसपोर्ट कर दिया जाता है। बिकॉज बोथ ऑक्सीजन एंड कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड मस्ट बी ट्रांसपोर्टेड बाय ब्लड, द हार्ट हैज़ डिफरेंट chambers to prevent the oxygen rich blood from mixing with the blood containing carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide rich blood must reach the lungs for the carbon dioxide to be removed, and the oxygen blood from the lungs must be brought back to heart. The oxygen rich blood is then pumped to the rest of the body. Oxygen rich blood from the lungs comes to the thin walled upper chamber of the heart, left atrium. Left atrium releases it, collecting this blood. It is then contract, and next chamber, left ventricle, relaxes, so the blood is transferred to it. When the muscular left ventricle contracts in its turn, the blood is pumped out of the body. Deoxygenated blood comes from the body of the upper chamber on the right atrium as it relaxes. As the right atrium contracts, the corresponding lower chamber, the right ventricle, dilates. This transfer blood to the right ventricles, which in turn pumps it to the lungs for oxygenation. Since ventricles must pump blood into various organs, they have thicker walls than atria. Valves ensure the blood does not flow backward when the atria or ventricles contract. Oxygen enters the blood in the lungs, then the separation of right side and the left side of the heart is useful to keep the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Such separation allows highly efficient supply of oxygen to body. This helpful in animals have which require high energy like human being and birds. In animals that do not use energy for the purpose, the body temperature depends on the temperature of the environment. Such animals like amphibians or many reptiles have three-chambered hearts and tolerate some mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Fishes, on the other hand, have only two chambers to their heart and the blood is pumped to the gills, is oxygenated there and passes directly to the rest of the body. Thus, blood goes only once through the heart in the fish during one cycle. On the other hand, it goes through the heart twice. It means blood during each cycle in other vertebrates, that is called double circulation. So you can understand here the blood fluid concept, granule blood corpuscles and liquid component plasma, a yellow colored fluid containing 90% water, 10% organic substances like plasma, protein, albumin, globulin, inorganic minerals. Blood corpuscles RBC carries gas, oxygen, carbon dioxide with the help of hemoglobin containing Hb. hemoglobin impart red color to the blood. Blood का लाल रंग hemoglobin की वजह से है. Blood platelets help in blood clotting. WBC provide body deficiency by engulfing the germs and producing antibodies. A yellowish fluid escapes from blood capillaries into the intercellular spaces containing less proteins than blood. Lymph flows from tissues to heart, assisting transport of and destroying germs. Arteries carry oxygenated blood. Veins carries deoxygenated blood. Arteries carry oxygenated blood from heart to the body part except pulmonary artery. Veins carry deoxygenated blood from body to the heart except pulmonary veins. Arteries also carry called distributing vessels. Veins are also called collecting vessels. Arteries walls are thick and elastic. Veins walls are thin and less elastic. Arteries are deep seated in our body and they are superficial. बॉडी में आप ऊपर से जो देखते हैं वो वेन्स होती हैं और मसल्स के अंदर डीप गई हुई वो आर्टरीज होती हैं. लिम्फ के बारे में ज़रा ज़्यादा जानना चाहिए. इट इज़ अनदर टाइप ऑफ फ्लूइड आल्सो इन्वॉल्व इन ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कॉल्ड लिम्फ और टिश्यू फ्लूइड. Through the pores present in the walls of capillaries, some amount of plasma, proteins and blood cells escapes into intercellular spaces in the tissues to form the tissue fluid of lymph. It is similar to the plasma of blood but colorless and contains less protein. Lymph drains into lymphatic capillaries from the intercellular spaces which join to form the large lymph vessels that finally open into large veins. Lymph carries digested food and absorbed fats from the intestine and drains excess fluid from extracellular space back to the blood. ये lymph walls of lymph capillaries हैं, opening into the lymph vessels and intercellular fluid एंड सेल्स के इंटरसेलुलर में हो रहा है ब्लू कलर का आप देख सकते हैं. इसके फंक्शन क्या है? इट एक्ट्स एट रिजर्वायर ऑफ वाटर, सॉल्ट एंड डाइजेस्टेड फूड. इट कैरीज डाइजेस्टेड फूड एंड फैट्स फ्रॉम स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन. lymphatic vessels present in the intestinal villi absorbs fatty acids. It contains phagocytes that can engulf and destroy bacteria and other foreign particles. Maintenance of platelets. What happens if this system of tubes develops a leak? Think about situations when we get injured or start bleeding naturally the loss of blood from system has to be minimized. In addition, leakage would lead to the loss of pressure, which would reduce the efficiency of pumping of the system, that is heart धीरे धीरे बंद होने लगेगा. To avoid this, the blood has platelets cells which circulates around the body and plug these leaks by helping to clot the blood at these points in injury. Blood pressure क्या होता है? The pressure is much greater in the arteries than veins. The pressure of blood inside the artery during the ventricular systole called systolic pressure. तो ये आप डायग्राम में देख सकते हैं और समझ सकते हैं. और अब हम इसके बाद आपको ह्यूमन एक्सक्रीटरी सिस्टम पढ़ाएंगे नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में. थैंक यू वेरी मच.